What does the word design even mean these days? We throw it around all the time, but its definition has been quietly stretching, expanding, right under our noses. So let's dive into this explainer and really unpack how design went from just making things look good to tackling some of the most complex, systemic problems in our world.
And this quote right here, it just nails it. Design didn't get complicated for fun or just for the sake of it. It was a reaction. The world got messy and complex first, and design had no choice but to evolve just to keep up. But here's the thing. This creates a massive problem. While the actual practice of design has already transformed, our institutions, our schools, our companies, even our basic understanding of what a designer does, they're often stuck way in the past. There's this huge gap between the old perception and the modern reality. All right, so to really understand this disconnect, we have to rewind a bit. Let's take a look at what design used to be and, frankly, why that old model worked so perfectly for such a long time.
For most of the 20th century, design's job was crystal clear. It was perfectly suited for the industrial economy. It was all about creating the physical stuff of our world. The chairs we sit in, the posters on the wall, the cars we drive. It was about mass production, and you could always hold the final product in your hands.
And let's be clear, this model was unbelievably successful. It literally built the modern world as we know it. So the problem isn't that it was wrong, not at all. The problem is that the world has fundamentally changed, but the assumptions from that era are still deeply baked into how we think about design today. So, where did the first crack in that solid foundation appear? Well, it happened when the focus of design started to shift from static objects to dynamic human behavior. And no, this first huge shift wasn't driven by AI or some other futuristic tech. It was the humble computer screen. All of a sudden, designers weren't just making physical things anymore. They had to design for something totally new, something intangible, how a person interacts with a system over time.
And you can see that shift so clearly here. A button wasn't just a button anymore. It was one click in a whole user flow. A screen wasn't just a static layout. It was one single moment in a much longer customer journey. And this is exactly where new fields like user experience, or UX, and service design were born, focusing on making those flows and journeys work for real people.
This quote really gets to the heart of it. It was a fundamental move from the what, the physical thing, to the how, the human behavior. The second design started choreographing someone's actions over minutes, hours, or even days. It jumped into a whole new league of complexity.
Okay, so with this new, expanding territory, it became pretty obvious that we were all going to need a new map to make sense of everything.
And that map came from a design theorist named Richard Buchanan. He came up with a framework that didn't just recognize this new complexity, it actually gave it a structure, so we could see how all these different kinds of design actually relate to each other.
So let's break down his 4 orders. It starts with the traditional stuff. First, you have symbols. Think graphic design, a company's logo. Then you have things. That's industrial design, a perfectly crafted coffee cup. The third order is actions. This is the whole experience of ordering that coffee, from the app to the barista. And then, the fourth order, systems. This isn't about the coffee at all anymore. It's about the entire supply chain, the business model, the company culture that makes that cup of coffee even possible.
Now, what's so critical to understand is that this isn't a ladder. It's not about one type of design being better or more advanced than another. It's simply a map of problems, a map of the different kinds of challenges design can solve. But here's the kicker. Even though we've had this map for decades, most institutions just never updated their course.
And that brings us to the next big leap in design's expansion. Because even the folks working on actions, those UX and service designers, they started running into a very big and very real wall.
Think about it. You can design the most beautiful, intuitive, user-friendly app in the world. But if the company's internal policies are a total mess, if the business model is fundamentally flawed, or if the organization is broken, the service is still going to fail. The problem wasn't the interface, it was the system behind it.
And so, pretty quietly, and often without the official job title of designer, design thinking started seeping into these much deeper fields. People started using design methods to solve totally new kinds of problems, like mapping out stakeholder relationships instead of screen wireframes, or running workshops on public policy instead of brainstorming new product features.
This was the moment. This was when design crossed an invisible but absolutely critical line. It shifted from shaping how a user feels to structuring how an entire organization behaves and makes choices.
It became way less about aesthetics and way more about strategy.
So, where does this whole journey leave us? When you follow this thread from tangible objects all the way up to these complex, interconnected systems, you arrive at a really powerful and, I think, unavoidable conclusion about what design has actually become.
I love this metaphor because it says it all. Design isn't lost. It's not broken or confused. It has simply gotten too big for the neat and tidy box we built for it back in the 20th century. It's spilling over into policy, technology, ethics, you name it.
And here's the ultimate irony in this whole story. The number one thing, the single aspect that used to define old-school design, the visuals, the aesthetics, making things look good, that is now the very part that's being most rapidly automated by AI.
This really leaves us with a new, much more accurate definition for our time. Design is no longer defined by its artifacts, not by the logos, the chairs, or the apps. It's defined by the scale of the problem it is willing to tackle. At its core, design is now a discipline of taking responsibility for complexity.
And that brings us to the final and really the most crucial question of all. If this is where design already is, right now, today, are we actually preparing the next generation for this reality? Or are we still just teaching them the history of a container they've already outgrown?